Aaron Choi. I'm a senior consultant here with Capco. And joining us today, we have Dan Demers, co-founder and CEO of Cinchy, a global leader in enterprise data collaboration. I've actually known Dan for quite a number of years. We've worked together in the past, so it really is a pleasure to have Dan here, join us here today to talk about data, our favorite subject. So over the last few years, thanks again, Dan. So over the last few years, we've seen a lot of progression in data management technologies, predominantly trying to address a lot of the traditional issues with data that we've had before. So things like data integration, we have data fragmentation, where data is all over the place. We don't know where it is. Data lineage, where because we don't know where it is, we don't know where it's coming from, we don't know where it's being used, all over large organizations. Obviously stuff with data privacy, ownership, governance, and quality. These are all traditional issues that we've had with data in the past. So here at Capco, we've identified data collaboration as one of the key trends for 2020 and beyond, where it takes a lot of, it takes a broader and more holistic approach to data management in general. And we try to alleviate a lot of the pain points that we just talked about and actually empowers our end users to actually use the data for its intended purposes. So Dan, what is your view of what data collaboration is and how is it different from all the previous innovations in data management?
Sure. Yeah, great question. Data collaboration, as we see it, is really the convergence of data management with data integration and the entire concept of applications, all converging into really what we see as a unifying technology shift. If you go back to 40 odd years ago, 1979, Oracle introduced the world to this radical new idea of a relational database, which was really the beginning of the age of distributed systems. And if you look at what's really happened since, like today's model is that there's an app for everything and a database for every app, and that is so unnatural for data, and that's why big companies spend half of their IT change budget doing integration, just as an example. So the convergence really spells the end of integration as a paradigm. And the opportunity here is for organizations to double their capacity and finally get control over their data, which, if anything, the proliferation of apps has eaten away at that control. Whatever control we had, organizations and even individual people today have very little control. It's the apps that control our data, which is very backwards.
Okay. No, it's actually very true, and it's very funny that you do mention data integration because, we've been working in the data world for a long time, and I'd say, I don't know, over my 10, 15 years of my career, I spent maybe 60-70% of the time doing data integration projects. And obviously, like even if it's not a project about data integration, a lot of the challenges with data projects is in data integration. So what are, in your opinion, what's maybe the top 3 long-standing challenges with data integration, and how does data collaboration actually help address and solve some of these things?
Yeah. And like you, my background has similar experience. I know, I was at what at the time was the largest financial institution in the world, and I spent a good 11 years there. And many of the projects that I was working on or managing were actually nothing but integration projects. So imagine a $25 million spend, of which $25 million is integration. Every regulatory compliance project, post-Dodd-Frank, where you're doing external reporting as an example. So the challenges there are really huge, and there's really 3 core challenges that I would see. Is the first is that it doesn't integrate itself. It takes time, it takes money. And like what we see, and if you look at industry analysts, on average, we're talking like half of the budget. Some are more, some are less, for individual projects, but we're talking half of the IT budget, which is huge. If you were able to deliver the same with half of the resources or do it in half the time, that's really the opportunity by simply avoiding the work of building APIs and building ETLs and looking at data virtualization and data replication and the byproducts of fragmentation, like reconciliation and master data management. All of these technologies and their entire categories of technologies only exist because of the way that we manage our data. So that effort part is really the first. The second is the fact that the nature of integration requires data to be replicated across applications. And as soon as you copy data, you lose control. Imagine if you were able to copy money, what the impact of that would be. And the final piece is really just the fact that the data is fragmented. So no individual user, be it a senior executive or an individual contributor, has visibility into all the data that they need through a unified experience. Is they have to piece together little tidbits of data that's scattered just to answer a simple question. And everyone's been chasing that panacea of a central platform to give answers, but so far everyone's failed to enable that outcome where data is truly at your fingertips, which is what ultimately everyone's seeking.
Oh, no, for sure. I mean, these things, like once you just mentioned them, that just rings another bell to my head, is like these are just so resounding because, like you said, everything is just fragmented like that.
Right.
So Dan, let's talk a little bit about Cinchy, right? So first of all, congrats to yourself and Karan for getting Series A funding. We've seen a lot of good press in various Gartner reports, and namely Cool Vendors of 2020, Cool Vendors in Data Management of 2020. So congrats for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so can you tell us about some of the key features or some of the differentiating capabilities of Cinchy that kind of sets it apart as the leading data collaboration provider out there?
Sure. Well, the core of Cinchy, like any data collaboration solution, is really the idea of a data fabric, which is a network architecture for data, which really is what enables that alternative approach to integration. So if you do follow Gartner and Forrester and other industry analysts, you're already seeing a lot of buzz about just more broadly the category of data fabrics and how transformational they are. And we compete in that rapidly emerging space. I saw Gartner just published their updated hype cycle for data management just a few days ago, actually, for data management, and data fabric has advanced quite substantially just over the past year. It's now really just at that peak, and they claim that that is a rapidly emerging but incredibly transformational technology. So the first part of it is we have a very strong data fabric that enables that interconnectivity of data versus connecting applications. But what's our differentiator is that we go beyond that base data fabric. So the idea of a data fabric and enabling the interconnectivity of data across applications really then sets the stage for the creation of a universal human experience for data, which we take advantage of with what we call the data browser, which is, think of it conceptually as you think of a web browser, a single interface that allows you to access all the world's content via the World Wide Web. Well, our data browser is the equivalent, but it's not content, it's not documents, we're talking about data, and data that would otherwise be fragmented across these applications. So that is a capability that is unique to us, and really is only made possible by building atop of the data fabric. And then the second part, which I personally find the most interesting, is the idea of autonomous data. So historically, data is like the driver of data, just like a driver of a car is a person, the driver of data is an application. So if we talk about driverless data, autonomous data, well, that's, if the application is the driver, then we're talking about appless data. So the idea that data can be born free on the fabric and never need to live inside of a data silo in the first place. A lot of people don't fully appreciate that data is not finite. There's new data all the time, and I don't mean just new rows of data. I mean, there's new regulations, there's new products, there's new, just look at the impact that COVID's having. It's just new. Data is like a living organism, and it needs to evolve. And today, in an app-centric world, you have a new regulation, you have to collect one new attribute about a customer. All of a sudden, it's a $100,000 project, and it's going to take months because you have to buy, build, or change an app for that. Whereas if you're on Cinchy and you're using data collaboration with autonomous data, is that change is now ours, and it's not a workaround, it's not a stopgap, it's highly strategic, and it's naturally connected.
No, that's awesome. I mean, it sounds like a super powerful tool, and it's super useful across any type of organization that there is. So I guess maybe since you're kind of talking about the value of data collaboration in Cinchy, can you give us some use cases in your experience that have been able to generate, or maybe some of the use cases that have been able to generate the most value, and maybe focus on financial services organizations?
Sure. Yeah. And one of the questions that we always hear is, it sounds way too good to be true. Where would I even get started? So a big part of the dialogue that we have with our customers is not just about the technology. It's how you use the technology and where you apply it, and what is that approach. And in a COVID world, no one has the time, patience, or money to invest in some type of foundational project that in theory is going to deliver some ROI a few years down the road. No, you need immediate ROI, you need immediate payback. So one of the big elements of our approach is that don't create a Cinchy project or a data collaboration project or a data fabric project. Instead, use these technologies to accelerate the projects that you're going to do anyways, one way or another. Whether you need to accelerate the digitization of some type of service delivery as a result of us now being in the touchless economy, or you need to lower your operational expenses, whatever the project is apply the tech to that. And if it doesn't save time and money, don't use it. Simple as that. So it's great that there's all these compounding benefits, but if it doesn't make it real, then it just reminds me of historical foundational projects. I remember a few years ago, everyone was spinning up their multi-million-dollar, multi-year data lake projects, and look where that's kind of ended with everyone. So the type of use cases where it's a good fit are the ones that are the most important to the business, where the opportunity to accelerate and cut time and cost is actually going to have the biggest impact to the business, period. So as an example, if you look at just recently, governments all over the world are making available relief loans to small businesses, and they're leveraging financial institutions as obviously the vehicle to deploy those funds. Well, one of our customers who was already using our technology, they already had built a data fabric. They had an idea of making that capability to offer a fully digital end-to-end experience for end customers, small businesses, et cetera, to apply for that relief through individual credit unions without those credit unions having to stand up their own bespoke solution. So what they did is they created on top of a data fabric, a fully digital, fully end-to-end experience that captures, the initial loan application, all online or mobile, and the entire adjudication, payments, repayments, the reporting back to the government, the entire end-to-end process. And they went from an idea to it being online, accepting applications from members of initially 35 credit unions. That's now growing, and they did that in 5 days, as an example. And
wow.
There's an example where it's not possible with conventional technology to go from idea to production in such a short amount of time, and that's only possible when you're using a very radically different approach to data and applications. And that's one such example where you're having kind of that massive acceleration. And that's, in this particular case, it was very exciting just because you could see that it's making a real impact in terms of making those funds available.
Sure. Oh, for sure. That's crazy. The amount of time that you're able to actually spin something up and then put it in production and actually use it. It's actually really amazing. It's actually game-changing, I would say. Excuse me, for the industry.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we have time for one last question. So Dan, where do you see data collaboration advancing or evolving in the next, I don't want to say 3 to 5 years because that's a long time. So maybe just the evolution, how do you see it advancing for the future?
So we see it being basically the big shift. There's been a lot of talk about innovation and disruption in the world of data and technologies and applications, but the fact that 40 years ago you were standing up apps that were managing their own data and doing integration, and 40 years later you're still doing the same, tells me that the change throughout those decades have been incremental at best. And in the same way that going from central monolithic mainframes to distributed systems was a really, really big deal, the idea of going from distributed systems with distributed data to a world where there's app experiences and connected data we see as equivalently a big deal. So I see it as there's no going back, and it's going to impact every organization. It's going to impact not only IT departments but the business, and it's going to be at a kind of a ridiculously accelerated rate, especially with everything that's going on in the world with COVID, and organizations need to stand up new offerings and cut costs.
Well, yeah, for sure, for sure. Okay, thanks again, Dan, for joining us and sharing your thoughts on data collaboration. And obviously, it is a pleasure for you to join us here today. And we look forward to seeing you again soon.
All right, take care. Thank you.
Take care.